we are live and recording. Good morning. Thank you to those of you joining us today. We're just going to wait for a couple more attendees, and then we'll get started with today's program. We appreciate you joining us. Thank you again. If you're just joining us, just wanted to repeat myself here. We're going to wait 1 or 2 more minutes to let everyone be able to join us on this morning's webinar, and then we'll get started. I want to be really considerate of your time, but I appreciate you joining us here today and look forward to getting started in just a minute or two. All right, everybody. I think we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning. Welcome to the 8th in a series of Burbank Tech Talk webinars responding to the COVID-19 crisis and focusing on recovery and resiliency. Our program today is presented by the City of Burbank's Economic Development Division. My name is Marissa Miner, and I work for the City of Burbank. Before we go ahead and get started with today's program, I wanted to share some general info with everyone here. We will have a joint Q&A time at the end of today's program. If you have any questions, you can click the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom window to submit your questions. And you can also upvote other questions that you find are applicable to you so that the most popular rise to the top. We're going to do our best to answer as many questions as we can this morning. All of our Burbank Tech Talk webinars are recorded and posted on our Economic Development website for those of you who would like to share or re-access the information presented today. Be sure to visit our website, econdevburbank.com. That's ECONDEV, burbank.com, where you can view an archive of our past webinars, as well as information on business consulting services and business incentives in the City of Burbank. Today's webinar will focus on driving holiday sales, retail trends, and e-commerce. We're excited to have three wonderful speakers joining us today on our agenda, giving updates and sharing information tailored to the business community here. In order of today's agenda, joining us will be Stephanie Cegelski, Vice President of Public Relations for the International Council of Shopping Centers, and Gabrielle Chanel and Fernando Isern, owners of Networkfolio. So to kick things off, I'm going to introduce Stephanie Cegelski here, Vice President of Public Relations for the International Council of Shopping Centers, or ICSC. For those of you not familiar, ICSC is the preeminent voice of retail and real estate, both stateside and across the globe. Stephanie is the primary spokesperson for ICSC and brings with her today a wealth of information. Stephanie, thank you for joining us to give an update on spending forecasts and trends for the 2020 holiday season.
Marissa, thank you for having me, and thank you everyone for joining. I am going to take a minute here and pull up my presentation, which usually pulls up very quickly, but there we go. So I am going to speak today about, hopefully everyone can see this, if I can get it together, holiday shopping and the pandemic. So what I'm going to do is really kind of discuss what we are looking at this holiday season, how the pandemic is playing into that, and then discuss a little bit about we've been tracking consumer sentiment around the pandemic since April. Running. At that time, it was every 2 weeks we ran a survey. Since about the summer, it's been monthly. So we've got some updated information that just came in from November. We'll have more in December. But I want to start with our holiday sales forecast. So there's a lot of different forecasts out there this year. Most of them, like ours, are around the 2% growth range. So we're forecasting a 2% or a 1.9% year-over-year growth in physical stores, and that's total spending in total spending for November and December. So that is all holiday activity as well as normal sales activity. So it's to the tune of about $862 billion that will be spent in last month and this month. Somehow it's December already. And holiday shoppers are going to spend an average of $655 on holiday-related items. And this is actually up from actual spend in 2009, which came in around $608 per person. So we ran our holiday intention survey this year a little bit differently than in years past. We would have typically run a series of questions, very standard, around behavior, around seeing Santa, around shopping. But this year, we really wanted to look at it through the lens of COVID. So we found that 73% of shoppers plan to spend the same or more this year than they did last year. This is important because there are concerns around the economy and unemployment. And we've seen consumer confidence fall during the pandemic from a high of about 102 in February to in the 70s throughout the pandemic. So there are a lot of concerns around the economy. And while we are expecting strong sales this season, we're also expecting strong online sales. And 81% of shoppers will spend money in physical stores, which is important. And 93% are going to take advantage of both online and physical options with retailers. So that's really impressive. That means that almost all consumers are going to do some sort of shopping this season. The online piece is important because, this was a growing trend before the pandemic, but due to mandated closures by governments in various parts of the country and throughout the country at various periods of time, consumers have become really more reliant on omnichannel, more so now than ever before. So we've seen for several years the top place for people to shop are discount department stores, and this is just typically your Walmart and your Target. And we're going to see that kind of again this year. And finally, for this slide, 43% of consumers plan to make more purchases online this year solely due to the pandemic. So of those people that are going to shop, almost half of them are going to move that shopping experience online. And that's really important because we hear a lot about how online is taking over, how Amazon is taking over. But it's really important because people aren't doing it this year because online is the way to go. They're doing it solely because of the pandemic. So I'm kind of looking at our key categories for our forecast. You can see the top two categories for growth are building materials and food and beverage stores, which are your grocery stores or supermarkets. This year, we've seen strong sales numbers in the building materials category for two reasons. The pandemic has kept people home, and so they want to do more home improvement projects. They just want to reinvigorate their home. And the sheer volume of hurricanes that made landfall this year, as we just within days ago ended the hurricane season, just shy of a storm named Kappa in the Greek alphabet. So that's required a lot of significant repair and rebuilding as a number of those have come ashore. And grocery is expected to stay strong as it has been throughout the pandemic. Another category that's been strong this year and will remain so through the end of the year is the sporting goods, hobby, books, and music category. So the closure of fitness centers has led many to, purchase bikes and other equipment for their home use. And families have been forced to stay home, which has led to, more purchases around puzzles and games. So as we look at the uptick in cases and potential for another round of shutdowns, it's likely that this category will also remain strong. And as I mentioned, the biggest increase we're forecasting is electronic shopping and mail order. And this is not in our 1.9% forecast. That's solely for physical store sales. And when you look at electronic shopping and mail order, there's a number of things that go into this to include catalog orders, mail order prescriptions, shipping fees, but the bulk of this category is online sales. And we're predicting a year-over-year increase of 25%, which honestly could be low, depending on how these next few weeks play out with the virus and as we look at kind of this surge in cases. But the online channels will see record sales this year, which we already saw over the Thanksgiving holiday weekend. So now to kind of look at the 2020 season a little bit more in depth and what consumers are thinking for the season. So we know that 73% of shoppers plan to spend the same or more this year, but there are some very valid reasons for this. And there's some reasons that people are spending less and some reasons that people are spending more, and both are really tied to the pandemic. Those planning to spend more are doing so because of promotions and more people to buy for it, but also because they've saved more money due to the shelter-in-place orders and their lack of travel plans this holiday season. The month of May saw record savings at 33%. So as people have commuted less or are dining out less, we've seen them save more throughout the pandemic. For here in the New York area, we've been home since March 13th. So there's been almost 9 months now of a significant decrease in spending. And those planning to spend less are doing so because of uncertainty around the spike in cases and the current COVID cases. So the need to save money to pay for essentials such as food and rent. There are fewer gatherings to attend. They're not going to be going to Christmas parties, either personal or corporate parties, and the change in their budget due to a job loss or reduction in pay, and going back to the concerns around unemployment or temporary pay decreases that a lot of people have seen during the pandemic. So not only is the pandemic pushing people to shop online, it's also dictating how and why they are spending their money. In a typical year, promotions would really lead the reasons why shoppers might be enticed to start their shopping early. But this year, it's concerns related to the pandemic again. The majority of shoppers want to avoid crowds and last-minute rush. Supply chains are still under stress globally, so shoppers are also concerned about product availability, especially as we approach closer to the holiday. And this is driving them to buy items when they see them in stock. One of the other things is, people started shopping in October as Amazon had to move their Prime Day from July to October, and Walmart and Target kind of followed suit with some of those. And they also, a lot of retailers have expanded their traditional Black Friday to a number of Fridays, or a 2 to 2.5 month promotional window. So, we also know that there's a strain being placed on shipping channels this season due to the volume of online ordering taking place. So consumers are really taking heed of these warnings and planning ahead to ensure their packages arrive with plenty of time to spare. So we're going to know in a couple of weeks what the retail sales numbers were for November, and I expect that a lot of people did their shopping because there are these concerns around supply chain and shipping, knowing that, typically you can push it up to about the week before Christmas as far as shipping goes. This year, the warnings are you need to try to have things in the mail or shipped to you by December 11th, which is 9 days from now. So, a little bit, the holidays approached us quickly, but there are a lot of concerns around getting items. And of course, people have started earlier because they're concerned about health and safety, and just making sure that they don't have to go out more than they really have to, or than is necessary. So I just mentioned that safety is a top priority for consumers, and the majority have said that a surge in cases would negatively impact their in-person shopping plans. Again, as we are currently seeing a spike in cases, and with medical experts predicting that spike to continue as we come out of the Thanksgiving holiday weekend, people are thinking, they may pull back on their plans or their shopping if that spike in cases continues. So we're going to have a sense here in the next probably 7 to 10 days what it's going to look like for the rest of December. They're also looking at retailers that have strict health protocols and safety protocols in place. So people want the mask wearing, they want the hand sanitizing stations, they want visibility on the cleaning. So those are all important. And not surprisingly, as I've touched on, promotions are more important to consumers this year than in most years. They will drive people to physical stores, and they'll drive additional spending while in store, which is important. Because a lot of times what happens is whether somebody is buying online and picking up in store, we see that additional purchase being made. So a lot of retailers are just going ahead and adding promotions on top of that to drive some of that spending. And we know that those promotions do drive additional spending, and 65% of consumers are looking for that. Also, as I mentioned, click and collect, that's the buy online, pick up in store. It's going to be used more frequently this holiday season. People are going to just go ahead and do that. The pandemic has resulted in a number of new types of pickup, whether it just be strictly curbside, text and have it delivered to your car, or you walk into the store and pick it up from a designated area. As for the typical functions that people attend through the holiday season, as I mentioned, those are going to be scaled back this year. So people really aren't planning. 64% of people say that they aren't going to have as many plans as they did previously. And as I shared just a moment ago, that has resulted in a savings in their total spend. So those dollars are going somewhere else as opposed to maybe to clothes or to food. It's more likely that they'll go to gifts and things like that. So 50%, the nice thing is, as we've talked a lot about the number of store closures or potential store closures during this time due to the government mandates requiring business owners to close their doors. Small businesses have been remarkably affected by this. Some of them had to shift very quickly. They didn't have an online presence, and so they found themselves having to create one in order to survive. And that has resonated with consumers, as 54% of people plan to intentionally shop with small businesses just because of the pandemic. And to my mention a moment ago of people shopping earlier to avoid shipping concerns, the interesting thing is 74% of people are prepared to be more patient and understanding of delays. We'll see if that actually carries through Christmas Day, but as of late October, early November, they were prepared to be patient. And similar to the small business front, almost half of consumers plan to be more charitable this year due to the pandemic, as we see a lot of stories about food banks in need and other organizations running short on supplies just because of the sheer need due to the unemployment. So that's really kind of a nice thing. We don't necessarily see these numbers this high every year, even though this is really a time of giving. So looking at this past Thanksgiving weekend, we knew that people were demanding more channels to shop in. They want as many options to shop as possible. And we saw that really this weekend from Thanksgiving through Cyber Monday, where 54% of consumers spent in a physical store. That was low. Typically, it's in the 80% range over the weekend as we see, packed stores and blockbuster deals at 5 a.m. with lines outside the doors. We didn't see that this year, and that was really out of health and safety concerns. People just heeded the warnings and stayed home. But 42% of people spent online and then picked up at a physical store. So that's in addition to what the 54% spent in the physical store. 39% spent online and shipped home, and 48% of people spent with Amazon, which was actually lower than what they had intended to spend, but still a very high number. So, we love Amazon. They're actually a member of ours, but they make media a little bit tough for us sometimes. But they did well this year too, and I think it's just really important that all retailers do well at the moment. So finally, as I mentioned, in March we began running biweekly surveys to get a pulse on consumer behavior as government mandates were being implemented. Since August, we've been conducting the survey monthly. So the following is actually from our most recent survey, which was run November 13th to the 15th. And general sentiment shows that about a third of consumers believe the economy is improving, but almost half feel as though, only a third, let me put it in this way, perspective, if only a fourth believe that the economy is better than it was a month ago, that it's improving, almost half feel that within the next 12 months, the economy will improve. And this was, part of what we saw in this was there was an uptick in consumer sentiment following the election. And people felt much better about the economic future following this year's election, which is a little bit, it's somewhat similar to what we actually saw 4 years ago too. So it wasn't a right versus left type of argument. It was, just sort of having that decision made, it helped people feel more at ease. 65% of people agree that businesses should be open in their state. However, just as many, if not more, actually support a shutdown if there's another spike in cases. So it's a little bit of wanting to have it both ways. And only a quarter of people have no plans of cutting back on spending despite the pandemic. So, which is very interesting because there are people out there that are just still very willing to spend. And as we look at holiday spending or spending in general, it really is an income-based experience and decision. So those who haven't had any sort of impact on their income throughout the pandemic are still spending, and those that have obviously aren't and have no intention to even try to spend. So that's where we're going to see the real difference this year is a little bit between the haves and have-nots as it relates to the pandemic. So consumers are definitely concerned about leaving the house, and they really only want to do it for those things that are necessities. And at this point, that's grocery shopping, which has seen, in the third quarter of this year, it saw a 167% year-over-year growth in online shopping. So grocery stores have definitely benefited from adding that digital channel as their sales are higher than ever. And again, a lot of that's due to closed restaurants and people being home more. But really the majority of consumers only want to have to leave their house to go to the doctor, to go grocery shopping, or to pick up takeout food. They're not even very quick to want to sit in a restaurant at this point in time. Excuse me. And we asked again, we asked back in March or April around the CARES Act, and what people thought of that and where they wanted money to go. And interestingly enough, 6 months ago, hospitals were prioritized as they should receive federal funding. When we asked again a month ago, the top 3 were restaurants, small businesses, and retailers. And that's where consumers felt that Congress should focus their support to help the economy thrive and continue forward. And as you can see, that the 4th one there is hospitals. So there is still a strong support of those, but people are really feeling and understanding the impact that, the retail industry represents 1 in 4 jobs. And I think people are really feeling that and understanding that now and seeing that, cities depend on this for sales tax. And if those sales tax revenues aren't coming in, that's a budget issue. If rent can't be paid, then mortgages might not be able to be paid and property taxes can't be collected. So there's definitely a very connected, a thread of connectivity through all of this that is impacting everybody, and consumers are really seeing that. So that's it for me in a nutshell. So I will stop my sharing.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Stephanie. That's a lot of great information and insight into holiday spending and retail trends. I know it's important in future planning for our businesses and as entrepreneurs move through the stages of building recovery and resiliency. Again, I want to remind those tuning in today that you can ask questions if you have them. Feel free to use the Q&A chat button at the bottom of the screen, and we're going to go over those later in today's presentation. It's a perfect lead in here talking about moving online and e-commerce. I'm pleased to introduce to you our next speakers, Gabrielle Chanel and Fernando Isern. They're co-owners of Networkfolio, and that's actually a Burbank-based consulting firm. If you attended our Spring Tech Talk events, you may remember Networkfolio as a past presenter. They shared information on e-commerce. Thank you, Gabrielle and Fernando, for joining us again today and speaking on this really important topic.
Thank you, Marissa, and the City of Burbank for inviting us to this Tech Talk. And I'm happy to be here. As former Apple retail marketing trainers, we started our web consulting company to help business connect the dots and build a strong online presence.
And I think this is a perfect, like you said, the perfect leeway into what we specialize in, which is basically moving into e-commerce and leveraging the e-commerce space to further and grow your business. So one of the interesting things with the pandemic is we've seen an acceleration of the adoption of certain technologies, and also some of the blurring of the lines between physical retail and e-commerce, as more and more businesses have had to move to e-commerce, but also try to keep the physical presence as much as they can. So I think what we want to do on this next slide is talk about some of the basics that businesses need to focus on when thinking about e-commerce. And I know this is something that you hear from almost everybody. You have to focus on social media, email marketing, that type of thing. But this is really an opportunity for businesses during the holidays and even beyond to really expand their offerings, and especially the way they connect with customers. So in order to leverage the advantages of e-commerce, you have to have these basics in place. So you have to have a strong e-commerce platform You have to have a solid email marketing platform and campaign, and also a good social media strategy. And these have become even more important as businesses try their best to weather the COVID-19 storm. Um, Basically, for businesses, you have to be able to gain customers, keep them engaged, and coming back with limited physical contact. Um, if we move a little bit past these basics, we're going to be also discussing some new technologies and tools that business owners can leverage to gain and retain customers during the pandemic. Um, so we're going to start with social media on the next slide.
Yeah, and most businesses are familiar with social media in some form of taking a stab at it. And I just wanted to kind of focus in on just a couple of things to talk about. And that is, how are you engaging your customers and capturing, those online holiday sales? There's a great opportunity right now. And one of the best things you want to do is communicate with your customers in a consistent and an effective way. And, especially when they're not physically in your store. So no better way to do that than being active on social media. So, how to engage. Of course, you want to post consistently, but think about the type of content you're posting in terms of, are you asking your customers questions? Are you polling them? Or are you finding out a little bit more about them? Because that will inform what type of content you'll be posting. And in the spirit of giving and what's been happening with COVID, have you thought about doing any type of giveaway or contest just to kind of show off your product offerings, just to kind of let people know, what it is that you do in a fun and interesting way? And then another thing to look at to increase your engagement is finding really good hashtags. And people throw that word around a lot, but they don't really have a strategy in terms of how they're implementing and using hashtags. So the idea really behind it is you want to come up with certain type of keywords that can be translated into hashtags. And some of the things to keep in mind when you're posting is, what is this content about, what's physically present in the photos you're posting, what concepts, topics, or trends are related to the content you're posting, and, how would it be relevant in today's world, with everything that's going on, and, show off, your company's personality. People want to learn about you, as Stephanie was talking about in those earlier slides. Folks are looking to spend more money with small businesses. So, make sure you're putting your, your brand, your mantra, if you will, inside of your post. And just mix up your, these hashtags that you're coming up with, these keywords. So you use a well-known hashtags, maybe some somewhat known hashtags and little known hashtags. So you want to mix it up and make sure you're posting them. Not too many, but posting them. And the goal of using the hashtags is really just trying to grow and find your ideal customer base. So implementing a hashtag strategy along with just some interesting different ways to post content in terms of polls and giveaways is something that could be very helpful.
And moving on to email marketing, what you want to make sure you're doing is fostering a relationship with your existing customers. And one of the things that people think about when they're growing their business is, well, we have to constantly get new customers, and that's true, but it's very costly to get new customers. So don't forget that existing customer that already supports your business. So make sure you're fostering that relationship with them. Sometimes that's even more important than gaining new customers, is having that repeat customer buy again from your business, especially if you have that type of business where customers can keep coming back to buy your product. And when you do have customers, existing customers and new customers, you want to make sure that you're always collecting email addresses. That is very important. In terms of, I know it's a little bit more difficult now in terms of not having physical contact, but when they go to a store, we'll discuss QR codes and other ways to show that off, but make sure that people know that you have a mailing list, that you have a way for them to provide their email addresses in order to gain something in return. And this could be on the website as well. So it could be sign up forms, it could be pop-ups on your website. A lot of people get annoyed with pop-ups on websites, but the statistics show that they actually work. So people do want to give you their email address in exchange for something like a coupon or something free in return. So requiring an email for any type of transaction on your site, for example. Another good example of how to leverage both social media and email marketing is social media has very low conversion rates, normally around 1 to 2%. So what you want to do is use social media in order to funnel those customers into your email list. And you can do that, like Abby said, with giveaways. You can do that with contests. You can literally ask your customers for their email in exchange for updates and coupons and that sort of thing. And the goal is to get them into a channel that converts better than social media, has a higher conversion rate. Also, what you want to do is you want to incentivize customers giving you their email address. So you want to offer something for free. You want to offer some downloadable guide on your website, something like a raffle or a contest, like we mentioned before, or a discount or even a free item when purchasing. Anything to entice them to provide that information to you, because that's the key to allow you to communicate again and again with them. And it's good to have all those email addresses, but the key to email marketing is consistent messaging and even beyond marketing email. So for example, we're used to receiving promotion emails and discount emails and that sort of thing from businesses that we interact with. But does your business have, for example, a more integrated email platform that emails customers when they abandon the site, when they're looking at one of your items and they don't purchase, when they add one of your items to the cart and they stay on there for 5 minutes looking at it and they leave because they think the price is too high or they're not really sure? You have to be able to have an email marketing platform that can automatically trigger an email and send it directly to that customer, personalized and specific to them, that shows them the product that they were looking at. And there are many platforms that do this. Usually depends on the e-commerce platform you're using, but there are services like Klaviyo and Smarter Mail and others that basically go beyond the sporadic marketing email. Also, an important thing to keep in mind is welcome journey. So when you do get those email addresses and your customer gives you their email address, they want to be put into an experience. Basically, you want to walk them through the steps of what it is to be your customer. So you want to have what they call an automated journey. So as soon as they sign up, they get a welcome email, and then automatically 5 days later, they get a coupon. And then a week later, they get another announcement about news about your business. It's a way to keep them engaged and walking them through a journey as opposed to just randomly sending emails every once in a while.
And one of the things that may be a challenge for small businesses, folks may not be familiar with your website or your product offerings, but what you can do on your e-commerce platform is offer or generate trust. And you could do that in the form of having badges on your site that ensure your customer knows your site is secure, or you offer free shipping, or you have great customer service, or a really easy return policy or exchange policy. You can literally create badges and put them on your site to kind of foster and generate that trust. And another thing to consider is the payment options that you have on your site that will, something like PayPal, for instance. So that's a payment option your customers would instantly recognize and feel your site is trustworthy. Another thing that you can offer too to kind of help with spending for the holiday season is you can offer buy now and pay later options on your website. That's something to consider. So customers are more likely to purchase, especially during the holidays, if presented with an option where they can pay later or pay in small installments. So that's an option you want to explore for your website. And then with all of the online shopping happening now because of COVID, there is some security concerns. So you want to make sure you have a great platform that's protecting you against fraud. Make sure your current platform is secure and your payment gateway offers some kind of fraud detection and protects you and your seller. If you don't have a website that processes transactions yet, make sure when you're designing your site, you're picking a leading platform that already includes this type of security.
And if considering next steps, so we sort of discussed e-commerce platforms, email marketing, and social media, the usual suspects. But if you want to move a little bit further, you're already past those. It's good to go back and revisit and analyze and make sure that you have those in place the right way. But if you want to take some next steps, there are new ways to connect with customers. So one of them is QR codes. And you've probably seen these over the past few years have become more and more common. Most cell phones automatically detect QR codes, even with the basic camera, or people have QR code readers on their phones. But basically, when you display a QR code for your customers to scan, you can lead them to go to your website, for example. Let's say they're near your store and they're in front of your window and they can actually scan the QR code and go to your website so they don't make any mistakes when they type in. Doesn't take them a lot of time. They can find you on social media. You can also use QR codes to pay or check in for curbside pickup. Basically, what you're trying to do is replace any type of physical contact so your customers feel secure in the transaction. For restaurants and other places, you can even replace physical menus by just having the QR code on your website or on the window, and people can scan it and see your menu without having to touch a physical menu. There are companies like, there's many of them, but companies like Beacon Stack and also as well PayPal, they offer businesses a lot of options when it comes to maximizing QR codes. Another great option of communicating with customers is texting instead of email. So email is very important. It probably drives the majority of sales on e-commerce still, but as younger and younger consumers are basically looking for better ways to communicate, they prefer texting over email. One of the advantages of texting is if you capture a customer's phone number and you're allowed to text them, the great thing is that you're basically at the top of the line. They automatically get a text from you. Your email doesn't get lost in the clutter of their inbox, and you get their attention immediately. And customers actually prefer this type of communication. Customers hate waiting on the phone when customer support is busy. Some don't even like chatting, but texting is a really good option. So if you're able to capture people's phone numbers, and most people have a cell phone nowadays, you basically are able to text them promotions, offers, or just news and even updates about their order. There are a lot of great platforms that do this. Companies like TextMagic, Simple Texting, and Sales Message for small local businesses. So there's many options. And I think the third one is contactless payments. And this is something that had already been growing a lot pre-pandemic, but with the pandemic, it has basically taken off. So options like Apple Pay, Google Pay, and Venmo to allow your customers to feel safe while paying, not having to touch any surfaces. They don't have to type in a number. They don't have to do any of that. They can just put their phone and pay with their phone or even with their watch if it's a smartwatch. So these are some of the next steps, some of the things that you could be thinking about for the holidays and beyond. These are technologies that are basically growing leaps and bounds. So it's the ideal time to jump on them right now, especially with the pandemic. And that's about it for us.
Yeah.
I will. Trying to just unmute myself here. Thank you both for sharing all that information and how to best serve clients and maintain our business online during these challenging times. As I mentioned, Networkfolio is a Burbank-based business, and They provide all of those wonderful services mentioned today: social media management, email marketing, web consulting. So if you're interested in learning more, you can visit their website or reach out to them directly. It is now time for our Q&A, which will be jointly answered today, and keep your questions coming in as well, or upvoting questions that you would like to discuss. And as a reminder, we're going to do our best to answer the questions today, but you can always contact us here at the city via email after today's event if you have any additional questions or feedback. We do have a couple of questions coming on here today. The first one it would probably be best related to Stephanie, but I'll open it up to both of you. It says, how much of our current consumer changes to e-commerce, online shopping, digital streaming, et cetera, do you foresee becoming more permanent as the vaccine gets rolled out and we move through the stages of recovery here and new cases decline? So what does the future of online shopping and digital look like, and do we expect that to continue to increase exponentially, or what do you think, Stephanie?
So what we had seen going into the pandemic is that the growth in online shopping and sales had actually begun to plateau. So it was still growing year over year, but at a much slower, flatter rate. It has obviously exponentially jumped this year during the pandemic, but I expect that it will once again plateau as we resume sort of that normal day-to-day activity that we were accustomed to pre-pandemic. But I also think that it's always going to be there. It is, again, something that consumers want, and they want as many options as possible, whether that's online ship home, online pickup in store, in-store shopping, whatever it is, they want whatever is most convenient for them at that moment. So retailers are still going to have to offer it, but I don't think that we're going to see the exponential growth that we've seen in the last 8 months.
Great, thank you. We have two kind of questions that are actually a little bit similar. The first will be to you, Stephanie. You know, survey results, accuracy of survey results, polling, especially as related to the election, you know, things can change so frequently. How does ICS see, and how confident are you in the survey results? And what kind of safeguards do you put into place when doing surveys and getting your data?
That's a great question. Since we've been through 2 presidential elections with polling issues, I will say that the surveys are very different than polling. I'm really confident in our survey results. We do, it's a statistically significant group of people. And what we've really seen is because we've done a number of these, like our holiday surveys we do every year, but our coronavirus surveys, we've done them so frequently this year, we haven't seen a lot of movement in the numbers. So we're really confident that people are set at what they're presenting to us. So they are being very honest with us. When it comes to things like total spending, those numbers obviously shift, and they can shift for a variety of reasons. So, you know, we're forecasting that people are going to spend $655 each. Every year we forecast that, and it comes out somewhere different. So, you know, people's situations and whatnot change. But as far as our surveys go, I'm actually really confident in the numbers that we gather.
Thank you. Yeah, forecasting is an art and a science, it seems like, but appreciate that info. Networkfolio, this question's for you both, and a little bit on the same vein, but the opposite side here. You know, online sales are up, online theft and scams are up too. How do businesses protect their website from online threats and break-ins, and how do you best communicate to consumers that you have a safe site that can be used for e-commerce?
Yeah, I think like Gabby mentioned, the best way is to display badges, security badges, and even PayPal commerce button, basically letting customers know that you have a payment gateway that they can recognize. Going further than that, I think number one is making sure that you're on a platform, that your platform stays up to date. I know some people have their e-commerce websites on WordPress, so it's really important to make sure that your passwords are strong. If there's any way to enable 2-factor authentication where you have to put in a code from your cell phone in order to log in. So you want to make sure that you're locking down your admin account so people can't just easily guess your password and get into the backend of your store. There's other options or other problems that you can face is basically people signing up for your email email newsletter with fake email accounts or they're just spammers. So there's options like Google's reCAPTCHA, which is a little add-on that you can add to your website that basically challenges them to identify photos to make sure it's a real human filling that out. So there are ways to protect yourself. Just from experience and dealing with some of our clients and even ourselves, we've noticed that banks and credit card companies have been locking down a little bit more on spending. So we personally had some purchases blocked ourselves on our credit cards just for security purposes, especially if customers are trying out new businesses that they've never purchased from before. So that may be an issue. But all in all, I think the strongest defense is to have a modern e-commerce platform, something like Shopify. I know people love WooCommerce on WordPress. So there are options. It's just making sure that the platform you're in, if it's not those two, is that they have security measures implemented and they get updated frequently.
Yeah, updates are important. That makes a lot of sense, ensuring that you have all the plugins, especially if, like you said, you're using a WordPress or using a site that's recognized like Shopify, and changing passwords, updating passwords, making sure they're not very easy to remember. It shouldn't be the name of your store. Yeah. Another question for the folks at Networkfolio here. Someone asked, in general, how many emails should you send per day or per week before people get annoyed and unsubscribe? What's the best way to track that?
It depends on the business, the customer, and the industry. But from experience, we can say we tend to prefer about an email a week, sometimes 2 emails a week. Knock on wood, we've never had any issues with customers complaining about too many emails. But what I would say is email as much as you want to communicate with your customers, and they'll let you know. So the way you would know is you would see your unsubscribe number spike up. So if you start, let's say you take a 3-week test, and on the 2nd week and 3rd week, you see your unsubscribe numbers go up, that's a quick indicator for you, a very immediate indicator that you need to slow down. Also, keep in mind how many emails you're sending. It may feel like you're sending 1 email because you hit send, but remember, your platform may be sending automated emails saying, thank you for your order is ready for pickup. There's many transactional emails that go out that we're not thinking about that the customer sees. So they may be getting emailed 7 times by your business without you realizing it. So keep that in mind. Some platforms even allow you to, for example, Klaviyo allows you to not be annoying. So they have a toggle, they have a little button that says, if this person has received an email in the past 16 hours, we're not going to email them for another day. So there are ways to get around it, but to be honest, it's a matter of testing. And some businesses are able to email a lot and their customers don't complain. And some industries, some customers just like an email a week or an email a month. Other platforms allow your customers to manage their preferences. So they can be put into segments automatically. So let's say a customer says, I only want to be emailed once a month. They check that box, and now they're only receiving the monthly email instead of the weekly email. So there's ways to get around it, but to be honest, it's a matter of testing and see what your customers like.
Yeah, that's a great point, especially if you're having emails go out when people sign up, thank you for signing up, or your order has been placed or your order is shipped type of emails. Those all count as emails as well, making sure that the quality of the message as well, are you sharing new information? Are you giving business updates or, coupon codes or things of that nature, or are you just checking in? All of those things are good to consider.
Yeah, I wanted to add too is about the metrics. Whatever email platform you'll be using to communicate with them, there will be a dashboard and a manager where you can go in and see all the details relevant to that particular message you sent, from what links they clicked on, what part of the email they were looking at, etc. And it's a good idea too to think about if you have customers that buy from you often. You may want to put them in a particular group within your email platform to maybe email those folks more often because they're very, very engaged. So that segment may get a lot more emails than the segment that kind of buys from you sporadically or occasionally. So there's definitely different ways. Once you're inside your dashboard, you can set up your platform that works best for not only your company, your industry, but for your actual customers. You can separate them out. So.
Yeah, and also think about condensing your email. So if you're already sending automated emails saying your order was placed, your order is ready for pickup, those type of transactional emails, consider including your promotions in those emails as well. That way you get a repeat order. They can save that coupon and use it later. But instead of constantly sending marketing emails, you can include your marketing in those transactional emails. So that way you're emailing less.
Great. The next question is, if you had your magic hat on and you could see the past or the future, what do you think the economy would look like? And do you think it would be in much worse condition if the internet didn't exist now and we only had full brick and mortar? Stephanie, what do you think?
Wow. I know, if we couldn't order everything from the palm of our hands, what would it be like? You know, I think that the thing I love about retail is that it always adapts to whatever's going on. So, I mean, retail has been around for centuries. So I think it's just the next step in a long line of retail transitions that have taken place. And it's just meeting consumers where they want to be. And it's making life easier. It's a little bit like it's adapting to our busy lives as we've, got kids and sports and music and all these things. It's adapted to that to allow us to do things more. So I don't think it's ruined anything. I think it's just enhanced our ability to be more efficient when we need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and Stephanie, you mentioned something earlier today, which is consumers want to purchase the way they want to purchase. So thinking about it for myself, yeah, I love purchasing online, but if I'm driving by or if I need to pick something up really quickly, I prefer going to a physical store and getting it. So we think of e-commerce as an enhancement of retail. Of course, there's many businesses that are e-commerce only, and that's fine. But we deal with those too. But e-commerce is really just a way to enhance your physical presence.
Yeah.
And I would add to that too. I mean, when you look at the cost of customer acquisition, which, is a little bit of what we've talked about here today with the marketing approach and whatnot, it's expensive and difficult to acquire those customers if you're online only. So having that physical presence, and we know that having a physical presence increases store or purchases in that market at that store by 30% So it does help to have both available to consumers.
That's a great point. I think the key word there is adaptable, and being adaptable as a business owner, as consumers are adaptable. The retail industry is really open to changing, and we've seen a lot of new retail concepts and things where you can try on in store or try on at home and return. So yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about what it would look like, but I think the way it is right now is pretty good, and we're going on the right direction forward there. The last question we have is probably one I'll tackle. It's how can we share how the City of Burbank and Burbank businesses are doing in general during this time, and that's definitely a hard question. It really does depend on the type of business, of course, and the industry. As I'm sure you're all aware, some industries, including film and tourism, have experienced longer delays in reopening, and some businesses, such as restaurants, who were allowed to reopen and have outdoor dining, were again shut down recently. So there definitely are ebbs and flows and highs and lows. I can report that our unemployment rate is higher at this time, unfortunately, as compared to last year, and it's really similar to what we're seeing across the county and across the state. Numbers closer to 11% as compared to our usual 4 to 5% within the city. I will let everyone know that we actually have demographics and psychographics on our website for the Economic Development Department, and those are updated on a quarterly basis. So if you go to visit our website, you can actually see all of the current demographics for Q2 that have been reported now and are posted there. Those include retail information, as well as information for office space, lease rates, and the like. In Burbank, we are lucky to report that our home values have stayed very consistent and have even gone up as compared to 2019. And although we do have some business closures, there are some new businesses coming to town, and we are excited. The Home Goods is still getting ready to open. Finney's Craft House in downtown Burbank, as well as a couple of other new dining concepts, are continuing to open. And we're working really actively to try to fill the retail vacancies that we do currently have. So, I would say that it's an ever-changing landscape, and we are really working to keep the businesses that we have here continue to grow, the business districts. But again, all of that information is on our website, and if you ever have any specific questions about retail vacancy rates or business vacancy rates, we'd be happy to answer those directly. With that, I'm going to give a shout out to our website once again, because it does have such critical, crucial information. It's econdevburbank.com. You can actually also email our staff through that website there. We want to thank you for being here today. We appreciate you all so much. Another big thank you to our speakers, to the city for bringing this series together. This is the last webinar we have for 2020, so I'm going to go ahead and take this opportunity to wish everyone a safe and happy holiday season. We will have more programming in 2021 and some new exciting things for our entrepreneurial and business community. So reach out to our team and keep an eye on our website for those updates, and always share your thoughts or any questions you may have. So thank you all for joining us. We hope you're well and stay well, and we will see you in 2021. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.